Hi guys, this is gonna be a improv explanation of the top 10 games that are currently most reviewed on Steam. Yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so the first game that's on the list is Portal 2. Yeah, Portal 2. I would say it's just, as the picture says, jack of all trades in terms of what it tells throughout the story. Um, it's interesting because I think the Orange Box first came out around the 2009, 2006, somewhere around then. And then Portal 2, or Portal, the original Portal, it was very much a kind of an experiment kind of thing. As I can recall, I think it was like a college guy came up with the original design of what the initial concept of the Portal engine or what it is, and then I think the guy was like hired on the spot, kind of hired on the spot, but like he was immediately called up for a job, and then he went into it, and yeah, I mean, I guess I really saw potential in the Portal concept, and Portal 2 just adds on top of what Portal 1 initially starts. Like, Portal 1, the story is very tightly contained. It's very much a story that's mainly about two people. I forgot what the main character's called, but it's like her and Gladys. And then in Portal 2, it's Gladys, I think Wheatley, and then the main character. Yeah, it just delves a little bit deeper story-wise into what Gladys is, and Johnson, the head guy of Aperture Science, and the whole concept of what's going on in the facilities story-wise, and classic Valve storytelling. You tells the story via the mechanics, or very much in front of you at most all times, like either Gladys or Wheatley moving along in the game. Uh, so yeah, I mean, very much, if I could sum up, if you finish Portal 1, it's kind of short, so I guess in Portal 2 it just expands and everything on top of that, not to mention the co-op aspects in the game. So it's very, very, it's a good design in general, mainly because the way it works in Portal 1 and 2, it's very spatially and kinetically intuitive as a puzzle. A lot of puzzle games get caught up in the technical theory or abstraction that it gets a bit too complex to understand once the puzzles move from the simple to the hard stuff. Whereas I guess the progression in Portal 2 is very steady. It doesn't like overcomplicate too much, which is, I guess, a good thing about the game. And yeah, Portal 2, pretty astounding game. It's got a good co-op, good story, good mechanics. Like, the mechanics are just top notch in terms of the puzzling mechanics as a puzzling game. So understandably, it's probably at the top because at the time it was very well received with very little complaints. Kind of feels like a time for maybe a Portal 3, but we'll see. I mean, there's always mod support for Portal 2 if you want to keep doing the puzzling mechanics, so yeah. But yeah, very good mechanically and story sound game. So yeah. The next game's Terraria. Um, I would say Terraria gets a lot of flack for I guess being compared to Minecraft because it's kind of like looting, crafting, building, and so on and so forth. But it would without if you don't actually play the game, you don't really understand why that's the case. If that makes sense, because very much Terraria, it's a very different concept in terms of Minecraft, because Minecraft is very creatively built, that you can do a lot of stuff, and when I got into it, the Ender Dragon goal wasn't in the game, so there wasn't really much of a goal during the development cycle of the game. I mean, as time has gone on, more development has gone on with the game, but with Terraria, it's different. It's more goal orientated with bosses, and there's like a goal in mind with visitors coming to your base. Yeah. The thing that I guess makes Terraria so popular, I don't know if it's like number 2 in placement, but it, I guess it's like a Minecraft game with goals, if that makes sense. Like very objective based with bosses and reasons to gear up and loot and get better. It's hard to say because Minecraft isn't on Steam, so you don't know if exactly where Minecraft would lay in the, you know, positive standing standpoint. But you know, that's like another video for another time. So if I could recall, Terraria, there's like a goal for every new challenge you get, because initially in the game it's like, oh, survive your first night, you know, wall up the zombies, try and survive, and then the second, or not second night, but yeah, like I think it's like red moon or something like that. But in the, when you dig down, you start versing like enemies that could go through the walls or something like that, and you begin to realize that there's like a certain way to beat this enemy that's flying around, and figuring out each new challenge that comes through the game is like, you know, it's challenging, but it's interesting. The main issue that the issue I have with Terraria is if the multiplayer was a lot more simpler to implement. But that's my only complaint about the game. Maybe it is simple, maybe you just need to look it up, but I don't know. Anyway. The Witcher 3. Now, The Witcher 3, I played a little bit of. It's mechanically sound as a fighting game. It's got all the works of what makes the game as a fighter interesting, and has like additional aspects to make it unique to the Witcher character himself, Geralt. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but anyway. The thing about this game is it's all about the narrative and the characters. Mainly characters. Like the characters you play, you see are very unique, memorable, and maybe have reasons to care about these characters. And then obviously the narrative follows as per so on. It's interesting how the game flows, because it's kind of like most of like the audience that has played The Witcher 3 probably hasn't played The Witcher 2 and only went to The Witcher 2 after they played The Witcher 3 and then went after played Witcher 2, maybe played Witcher 1. Um, I when I got into it, I got into Witcher 2, but um, yeah, I mean, it was an interesting game when it first came out, and then obviously Witcher 3 built on top of that. I mean, the mechanics are a little bit easier. I would say the game's a little bit easier in a sense, but Witcher 3's got a lot more open world aspects and side missions and so on and so forth, and it's very, you could lose yourself in the game. Like, there's this aspect or concept where it's like, how long do you travel in one direction before something happens, kind of thing. And I think it was like 40 seconds or a minute or something like that. It's very dense. Witcher 3, I mean, there's different components that make it why it is the top of the top in terms of what it is. The only other game that I can think of that has the same draw appeal or big announcement was like Elder Scrolls, Skyrim. Yeah, Skyrim. And then there was Mass Effect. And then there was a Halo franchise. Like, you can very much say that like The Witcher 3 would be a game to be remembered in history. Definitely something I should get into sometime, but yeah, I would say the draw card about this game is its narrative and characters, because without those, it doesn't really give you any reason to like play the additional side missions and leveling up. And the world building in this game is very deep in terms of the different characters and I guess mechanics of what these characters mean and do. I guess like as a Witcher, it's like your job to figure out why you should, you know, figure out the weaknesses, prepare for each battle, and so on and so forth. So yeah, in a way. Factorio. Now, if I could sum up like Factorio in one sentence, it's automation. Factorio is very much a concept of not being able to be in two places at once, but automating the process so that you're able to do that. I would say Factorio fills in that gap that like Minecraft had, where it's like mining and crafting, but in the concept of mining and crafting, but automation. There's this other one that's like 3D or first person that's in the same vein as Factorio, but two different games indeed. Viewing from a game from top down versus first person gives a different perspective of what you can do in a game. It's like the difference between playing Super Hot VR or Super Hot and then playing Hotline Miami. Like, one is like strategic and thoughtful, and the other is just reactive and thinking on the fly. Although, you know, Super Hot is very, I guess, momentum based. But anyway, Factorio, I mean, I've been following it for a while. It's just I haven't really got into it because I guess my issue is the goal in the game. Like, my understanding when it comes to playing games like Factorio, or, well, not Factorio, but like when I played RimWorld, I put it on the hardest difficulty, or try to put it on the hardest difficulty, to just drop you in the deep end of what to expect when it comes to difficulty. And then there's other games like Dark Souls or Sekiro that is just difficult up front, so you just get used to it. And then Factorio, it's like you can set your own difficulty, and I guess playing it with a friend, it's very mind-boggling the complexity of what Factorio can become, which makes it so intuitive using your mind to advance the narrative of the game rather than reacting to opposition in the game and just usually using violence to take out that process, because a lot of Factorio is kind of like indirect skill progression. You know, you automate a process, you make it more efficient, you speed it up, you do the various aspects of what a efficient factory is to essentially make an output of results, either through military production or, in simple terms, to reach the end goal, which is to escape the planet. So I like Factorio because it has a goal in mind, it has an end. A lot of problem with a lot of sandboxy games is that they just don't end, and it's mind-boggling to just even think of the concept of a game that just doesn't end till you die. And I don't know, it's personal preference, I guess. But anyway, Counter-Strike. Well, Counter-Strike's interesting because I only really experienced Counter-Strike, I guess, the first time on Xbox, ironically enough. Original Xbox on a system in the store, and when I played it, I was hooked. It was so different to all other FPSs that I've played because it's very much a game about realism in terms of damage mechanics and realistic guns and realistic movements. It's very, I guess, a response to what the game world was back then. I think it's 1998 or 1999, something like that, around 2000s when Counter-Strike first came out. It's kind of like a response to what other games that were out there. I mean, I'm not exactly sure when Call of Duty or Battlefield came out, maybe a little bit after, maybe a little bit before, but Call of Duty didn't really hit its stride till maybe Call of Duty 2 or maybe Modern Warfare. But that was like a different reason why that happened. But Battlefield, the draw card was like vehicles, and Counter-Strike was like its own machine of itself, where it's tight squads with communication being key and very much an objective with very short rounds. The problem with other games that came about prior to that era was, if you go all the way back, it's like Doom and Wolfenstein, and obviously if you advance a little bit forward, it's Quake and Unreal Tournament. And the problem with those games is that they're very twitchy in its movement. You know, you're strafing to dodge, you're always on the move, you're shooting weapons, you're looking at weapons with spawn points that have like advantages and memorizing the map. Counter-Strike moves in an opposite vein where you preemptively kill people to get money, to get better weapons, and you preemptively rewarded with better weapons to a cap until everyone has got good weapons. And the thing with Counter-Strike is it's to a T about accuracy, precision, and speed, and getting that down to like a fine point. I mean, it's crazy how like Counter-Strike in its competitive scene has come since its original inception. Counter-Strike, I mean, bit questionable where it is now, Counter-Strike Go, but very much a loved game of something of the past. And, you know, if you've been sticking to that game since then till Counter-Strike Go, it's like a relief that it's got the rank system now. But that's like another video for another time. Yeah. But Counter-Strike is very, I would say, a response to like what the games at the time are. It's probably the best Counter-Strike there was, maybe because for nostalgia purposes, but yeah, I mean, Counter-Strike, yeah, it's good because of the new shooter experience it offered, but yeah, anyway. Left 4 Dead 2, it's interesting to say when it comes to like cooperative games. You know, what's the magic number when it comes to co-op? Is it 5, 4, 3, 2? You know, and then, you know, Left 4 Dead. When Left 4 Dead first came out, it was a surprise, but I guess multiplayer for us in Australia, it wasn't quite as a boom as it should have been. It was on Xbox 360 and I guess PS3, and yeah, I mean, yeah, there was multiplayer, but you know, it didn't really catch on as it should have. Left 4 Dead 2 is an example of what co-op and what it means to work as a team, not to mention the competitive side of zombie and human, different mechanics that express different roles in a team. I mean, another game that I can think of that has that kind of same concept is Team Fortress 2. But very much Left 4 Dead, it's a concept of working together that's key to the success of this game. There are other games that kind of work the same idea, but execution-wise didn't quite land as well as what the Left 4 Dead game has done. It's interesting where Left 4 Dead runs now, or Left 4 Dead 2. The special infected enemies are very much different to what I guess Left 4 Dead 1 had. You know, it's always like Valve reinventing the wheel of, you know, you expect it to be one way and then they do something else and then you just couldn't predict that kind of thing. But if you know anything about the Valve meticulous process of what they design, they're very critical of, you know, what works and what... It's kind of like a designer or like Da Vinci going through 1,000 designs and then going through it again. The concept of like the, I guess, the Mona Lisa's smile, where he knows about anatomy and the muscles in the individual part of the face to understand the inner depth of what makes a smile like that. And I guess with Valve, you know, they've been designing games, or the people they hire have been designing games and just own inner psychology of what makes a game kind of thing. And yeah, so I guess Left 4 Dead 2, it's co-op at its best, but even more sophisticated in terms of a already sound design of Left 4 Dead 1. So yeah. Euro Truck Simulator 2. Now, I don't know anything about the first Euro Truck Simulator, but I do know that like Euro Truck Simulator is like an expression of, I guess, wanting a game about relaxation and driving in a sense. Typical driving in real life, like, to say the least, what is the most universal thing that people often do to get from point A or work or point A to B, and that's driving in a sense. And typical driving, you know, maybe 5 kilometers, or I don't know what it is in miles, like maybe 15 miles or something like that. But, well, not 15 miles. I don't know what the translation is. But it's very short distances, whereas Euro Truck Simulator, although bigger in its scale of what the driving mechanics is, it offers a perspective of just driving long distances, and I guess only focusing on the driving of all aspects. And it's like, you know, how can we do this but very well in terms of the management aspects of driving and missions and so on and so forth, and economies of scale of getting money. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's like, how could we do one thing well? And I guess this is what Euro Truck Simulator is about, is just providing the mundanity of driving and then making that. I mean, the way I see it is that when you're doing something as like automatic as driving, it automatically allows you to free up space for your mind to either maybe listen to an audiobook or just listen to music and just zone out, which I guess a lot of gamers don't really have when it comes to a lot of games. A lot of games, especially competitive online games like MOBAs, like League, or FPSs like Counter-Strike or Overwatch, or battle royales like Fortnite or PUBG or Apex, is that it has your focus. You have to be in the moment thinking, whereas Euro Truck Simulator is like, oh yeah, just going about the process and, you know, zoning out, and I guess in a sense just like a relaxing game, which I guess is tough to come by when a game that really demands your concentration and full attention at all times. So it's understandable why this game is top tier. It does what it does, but very well. So yeah. The Binding of Isaac. I guess when it comes to a bullet hell game, how can you have like an interesting concept of bullet hell with interesting design concept or theme, as well as trying to, I guess, make the game always a step of progression, yet being a roguelike. Many expansions of The Binding of Isaac with, you know, updates that are pretty game changing, and the progression of the game is always like a step of, you know, you unlock this character, or, you know, New Game Plus, or so on and so forth. And the game, ultimately, with its bosses near the end, with very much variety towards it, it's a game that is exemplar of the word variety, you know. Personally for me, it just makes me a little bit disgusted about, you know, the weapon types. I think it was like tears or urine or something like that, and it's just a weird game. But I think it's demonic themes or something like that, maybe, question mark. But Binding of Isaac, it does what it does very well in terms of a bullet hell game. I mean, the only other game I can think of that reaches that potential is Enter the Gungeon, and even that game is a bit yeah, but yeah, I don't really know much to really talk in depth about Binding of Isaac. I played it like maybe like an hour or something like that, but yeah. Binding of Isaac is key, is variety, and always a step of progression each time you play. So, yeah. And finally, Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley, I guess it's about measured, or I guess steps of progression through patience, which is a tough thing to implement in a game, really. It's always like, as the slide says, pause, break, step by step progression. You know, everything in this game has always got like a feedback loop that goes back to the concept of rest, pause, restart, play. You know, where at the start of the game is like putting out plants, planting, digging or sowing, and then watering those plants with a water can that, you know, needs to regenerate, to constantly, I guess, water plants, and then you can upgrade that water mechanic to make it even more efficient, which is another kind of feedback loop in psychology. And I guess the ultimate factor of this game is that everything is done in measured steps of breaks. You know, you do everything, you run out of energy, you go to bed, wake up the next day, and it's like a whole new day of just implementing new goals. And Stardew Valley is like built on the mechanics of what Harvest Moon is based off of, which I guess when I come from is with Yahtzee's analysis of, you know, waiting for something in anticipation. You know, you're waiting for the crops to grow to get the harvest. You're waiting to get more money so that you can build to the next step of progress. And it's very much an interesting concept game that, you know, it's like a kind of like Euro Truck Simulator. You can sit back, think, and zone out. And yeah, I mean, very much a interesting mechanic game. Very much varied in variety. I mean, I can't really do Stardew Valley justice in terms of what it covers, but, you know, there's like fishing, crop growing, and farm animals, and I think even combat. So, yeah, I mean, Stardew Valley, it's doesn't have a real goal in mind. I mean, it does have like a measured response of like, oh, did you do well here, blah blah blah, but it's not really, you don't have to follow that guideline. You could just very much make more money or crops, or just get into relationships. And yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's the end of the video. I tried doing this as a draft initially, but I think I might just post this up. Question mark is if I'm going to do some motion graphics about this and redo it that way, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hope you learn a thing or two of just the various games and just some thoughts about me and these games. And yeah, alright, cool. See you in the next one.